The master and apprentice relationship between Darth Sidious and Darth Plagueis is among some of the most unique in the entire history of the Sith. Darth Plagueis did not originally intend to take upon himself an apprentice, believing that he was the culmination of the Sith rule of two, and that he, in Plagueis, would be the one to finally bring the plan established by Darth Bane to the galaxy, destroying the Jedi and becoming the Emperor. It wasn't until Darth Plagueis ventured to the world of Naboo and sensed something peculiar within the Force that he resolved to take on a brand new apprentice. Darth Plagueis, though, did not believe that he needed an apprentice, but Sidious, in his natural power, at the time named Palpatine, was simply too much to ignore. What fascinated Darth Plagueis about Palpatine was his innate ability to hide himself in the Force despite being massively powerful, the most powerful individual that Darth Plagueis had ever sensed in the Force once Darth Sidious revealed himself. Plagueis was amazed that a boy with no formal training in the dark side had achieved such a naturally difficult ability, and with this, desired to rule with Darth Sidious at his side as co-emperors of the galaxy, believing the presence of Sidious to be a gift from the dark side itself and the culmination of the rule of two. With Plagueis believe it was fitting that the rule of two should end with two Sith emperors. With this though, this is not to say that once Darth Plagueis began training Sidious that he did not have problems with his Sith apprentice. One issue that Darth Plagueis deemed his greatest pitfall in the Force and the machinations of the dark side in general. And today, students of the Force and acolytes of the galaxy, we will explain just that, and explain exactly why Darth Plagueis was afraid that Darth Sidious's fascination with the ancient Sith would ultimately lead him to be defeated by the Jedi. To put things lightly, Darth Plagueis was not a big fan of the ancient Sith Lords at all, nor their doctrine. He believed that although there was great power and potential in the teachings of the ancient Sith and the Sith that originated in the Star Wars universe, that the Sith had to evolve, with Darth Plagueis taking this evolution established by Bane very seriously, as Darth Plagueis knew that the ancient Sith had never conquered the galaxy, and therefore believed that the teachings that he himself would create in his studies with the midichlorians and the Force itself were far more advantageous than anything that the Old Masters could offer. Although the Old Masters may have been more gifted in combat, despite all of their prowess, again, they had never defeated the Jedi, never conquered the Republic, and never reigned supreme. This is exactly why Darth Plagueis was so concerned when his apprentice Sidious showed a great fascination with the machinations of the ancient Sith Lords. To Plagueis' own admittance, the ancient Sith Lords were more gifted combatants, but this in essence went against what Darth Bane was attempting to establish and what Plagueis and his master before him had discovered. That being that the Sith did in fact need to change, and that the Sith would never be able to seize the galaxy simply by superior strength and arm. This is why Higo Damask, who was in fact Darth Plagueis, was a highly influential political figure in the galaxy, being the head of the banking clan, and Darth Sidious and Palpatine having huge political power as well, being born into the noble house of Palpatine and with ambitions of becoming the Supreme Chancellor. These were the methods in which the Sith would ultimately conquer, and therefore when Darth Sidious showed huge interest in discovering the Force abilities and the histories of the ancient Sith Lord, Darth Plagueis ultimately denied him of this knowledge. Darth Sidious had a huge desire to venture to the ancient Sith worlds of Korriban and Zyos. Sidious wanted to explore the ancient tombs of these masters in search of knowledge and their histories, but this is something that Darth Plagueis ultimately banned Sidious from doing. And unlike many Sith Lords, Darth Sidious actually obeyed his master. Plagueis believed that Darth Sidious needed to focus on creating his own path in the dark side of the Force and not be influenced by the ancient Sith Lord that had come before him and had ultimately failed. Sidious believed that if he were to ever conquer the incredible might of Darth Plagueis though, he needed this information, not realizing that his master, unlike many Sith Lords, were not withholding this information to make Darth Sidious weaker, but to ensure that he culminated into the perfect Sith before being allowed to delve deeper into this greater knowledge. Darth Plagueis believed that Sidious was becoming far too impatient, and that hidden deep within the tombs of the Old Masters would be great power in the dark side of the Force, but not the power that the Sith needed. Again, the ancient masters were hugely destructive in their abilities to touch the Force. They were better fighters years than many of the Rule of Two era Sith. But Darth Plagueis knew that if Sidious got too caught up in all of this, he would fail to be taught in the more obscure abilities of the dark side that they needed, such as focusing more on his own Force concealment and gaining political power and intrigue. The ancient Sith focused little on midichlorians, which Darth Plagueis was admittedly obsessed by, as Plagueis believed that the secret to eternal life did not lay in the tombs of the old masters, but within his own mind, and he believed that with the help of Sidious, they could create new trails in the dark side that had never been walked before. Luckily for Darth Sidious, he did actually follow all of these teachings by Darth Plagueis to a T, with the exception of a single time, when Darth Sidious ventured to the world of Dathomir and eventually discovered the young Zabrak male known as Maul, taking him as his apprentice. But again, Darth Sidious obeyed the greater wishes of Darth Plagueis and did not venture to worlds such as Korriban, until of course Darth Plagueis was ultimately killed. Following the death of Darth Plagueis, Darth Sidious did actually venture to these worlds, but he would not be corrupted by the knowledge held within in the old masters. Instead, what Darth Plagueis wanted ultimately did occur, as Darth Sidious had created his own path in the dark side and was his own unique Sith, and simply used the teachings of the ancient Sith to amplify his knowledge and powers. But they were not the foundation in which that he was constructed. Darth Plagueis had huge faith in Darth Sidious, but he feared that he was overly ambitious and highly impatient, believing that if he looked at the old knowledge first, then he would become more akin to the ancient Sith and more like a Sith warrior rather than a true Sith Emperor. What is very unique about Darth Plagueis is he never intended to withhold any true knowledge from Darth Sidious, which is something that many would consider his greatest fatal mistake. Darth Plagueis desired to share all of his knowledge with Darth Sidious and for the two of them to reign as equals, which in a sense does go against the doctrine of the Rule of Two. Darth Sidious, however, staunchly held to the Rule of Two, believing that one day he would in fact kill Plagueis. The downfall of Plagueis, though, is that he simply trusted Sidious far too much, and any knowledge that he decided to withhold from Sidious was actually for the betterment of the young Sith Lord. But anyway, my friends, and students of the Force, what are your thoughts on this insight, and the fact that Darth Plagueis did not want his apprentice Sidious to study the powers, machinations, and scripts of the ancient lords who had failed to conquer the Republic, at least until Sidious had established his own laws in the dark side and his own creations? Do you believe that this was a major contributing factor into Sidious's great power and his eventual rise, like we do here at the channel? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching and continuing to support. May the Force be with you, and I will hopefully see you in a later video.